In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create logic using if statements. Alright, so in the last lesson, we had learned about comparison and logical operators and how they can be used. And we used an if statement to show off how those are used exactly. And we had found out by the end of the lesson that our if statement wasn't exactly foolproof. We have a problem. It wasn't printing out a message, and it didn't take into account that what if we are actually doing the speed limit? What do we do then? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can use what's called an else if statement and the else statement, which goes along with our if statement that we've already created. So the first thing that I want to do when looking at this code, you'll see that we have if speed is greater than 70, and we have if speed is less than 40. This is what we would consider hard coding, and this is a no-no. We don't ever want to create conditions like this where we put in an absolute constant value that cannot be changed, because what happens if we need to make tweaks in the game? We may not know exactly how fast is good whenever we're playing a racing game or something like that. Maybe we need to dial the speed down just a little bit to make it fun. So what we can do in this case is we can change the maximum speed limit and the minimum speed limit. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and actually create variables for those. So let's do that now. Let's say public float max speed limit, and then we're going to set this equal to 70.0f. And then we'll do one more. We'll say public float min speed limit, and we'll set this equal to 40.0f. So now what we'll do is we'll replace these values with max speed limit and this one with min speed limit. Okay, perfect. So let's hit Control S to save that so that way it updates. So now what we can do is we can actually change those in the inspector whenever we're ready to make tweaks to our game. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and change how this works. I'm okay with this first if statement. It's perfectly fine with me for right now. Let's go ahead and actually just remove the minimum speed limit. Let's just do what happens if we're breaking the max speed limit. What do we want it to do? Let's say you are exceeding this max speed limit. Let's say that. You are exceeding the speed limit. Perfect. Now, what happens if we are going less than the max speed limit? Well, we know that it's not going to print off a message, so we need to create that logic in there. So we're going to say else if, and then we need to give it the condition. Remember, the condition comes in between the parentheses. So we're going to say else if speed is less than minimum speed limit, or min speed limit, then we want it to do this. Whoops, let's make sure we put that parenthesis back up there. So the condition, if it's met, it needs to execute code within these brackets. So we're going to say print, and then what do we want it to print? We're going to say you are not going fast enough. Okay. So, okay, that looks good. It looks like we've covered all of our bases. No, not exactly, because let's go ahead and hit Control S here to save that, and let's go into Unity. Now, right now it's okay, but let's say that we want to go 140 miles, and we want to do it in 2 hours. Hit Enter. Now, let's hit play on that. You'll notice that we're traveling at 70 miles an hour. We're not getting a message. What's happening here? Well, the condition is that if speed is greater than the speed limit, max speed limit, then we're going to print out this message. If the speed is less than the minimum speed limit, then we'll print out this message. But we never said what happens if it's equal to the max speed limit or equal to the min speed limit. Now, what we could do is we could say if speed limit is greater than or equal to max speed limit, then we'll print out that message. But I don't think that's really fair of the law, because if I'm doing the speed limit, then why are they telling me that I'm exceeding it? Okay, so we need to create some logic here. So what do we say if we're going the speed limit? How do we express that? So here what we'll do is we'll do another else if statement. We're going to say else if, and then we're going to do, let's say, if speed equals max or is equal to max speed limit. So you can see that we're using a new comparison operator, and we're going to say or speed is equal to min speed limit. We're going to print out another message. So the message we want to print is going to be, you are close to breaking the law. Perfect. So now let's hit Control S to save that. Let's go into Unity, and we'll go ahead and we'll hit play. And here we're seeing you were close to breaking the law. Perfect. Okay, thank you, officer. I'll just head on my way. All right, great. So now we still have a problem here. What happens if we're within the speed limit? What if we're not going exactly 70? What if we're going 68 miles an hour, or in this case 66.66 miles an hour? Let's go ahead and type that in, 203, okay, on our distance and time. If I hit play, you'll notice that I'm still at 66 and I'm within the speed limit, but I'm not getting a message. What if I want some sort of feedback from that? I need to be able to print it out. Okay, so now what I'll do is, it looks like I've covered all of my bases. But how do I tell if I'm within the speed limit? Well, I've created this logic to tell me if I'm over the speed limit. I've created this logic to tell me if I'm underneath the minimum speed limit. I've created the logic that tells me if I am equal to the minimum or the max speed limit, but I haven't told it what to do if there's any other condition. So let's just do this here. Let's just sum the rest up. If we're within the speed limit, if we're within 70 or 40, let's just say else. If none of these are being met, let's just print out a random or a pre-generated message. So else, and then we're going to do these curly brackets, and we're going to print out a message. Now you might be asking, wait, we're using an else statement. Where's the condition? Remember that an else statement doesn't need a condition because none of these are being met. And so we're just going to print out a message that says you are within the speed limit. All right, so now let's hit Control S to save that, and let's go into Unity. Let's hit play, and you'll see now we're getting that message. You are within the speed limit. So we're getting some sort of feedback no matter what happens in our game. So if we go over it, let's say that we do this and we want to go 100, or let's see, 300 miles within 3 hours. We hit play. We're exceeding the speed limit. Let's say that we do 100 miles, let's do 50 miles in 3 hours. We're not going fast enough, okay? But if we happen to be going exactly the speed limit, okay, max or min, doesn't matter, it's going to give us this message of we're close to breaking the law. So we've covered all of our basics using if statements. Now there are other ways of creating logic, not just using if statements. And so in the next lesson what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how to use switch statements, which is another way of creating logic.